Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. It's from Canto 2, which is entitled The Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 7, which is entitled Scheduled Incarnations with Specific Functions. And this morning we're doing text 21. We're very fortunate to have Her Grace Vrindavaneswari Radhika from ISKCON, Philadelphia, to give the class. Hare Krishna, dear Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Please accept mine. All glories of Prabhupada. Good morning, everyone.
Hare Krishna. It's all yours.
Krishna. Thank you. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Janavallabha Giravaradari Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Janavallabha Giravaradari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Janavallabha Giravaradari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tila Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Astatari Sata His Divine Grace E.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Astatari Sata is His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sikho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadara Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Girdhar Govardhan Ki Jai. Mayapurdam Ki Jai. Chamuna Devi Ki Jai. Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. ISKCON Harrisburg Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande. All glories the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Hare Hare Bol. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvashesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Deshatarane Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayana Namaskritha Naram Chaiva Narottama Devam Sarasvatim Vyasyam Jatutayam Adirayat Nastaprayashu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloki Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki. So we are going to chant this in the Brahma Samhita meter, and I'll chant it 3 times, and then you can take turns. Danvantararischa Bhagavan Svayam Eva Kirtir Namna Nirnam Pururajam Ruja Asyuhanti Yagne Chabhagam Amrityor Tayor Avavanta Ruddha Ayusya Vedam Anusashta Avitiryo Loki Danvantarischa Bhagavan Svayam Eva Kirti Namne na nrinam pururujam raja ashuhanti yagne chabagam amritayu arvara runda ayusya vedam anushastati avatira loki danvantarischa bhagavan svayam eva kirtir Namna nrinam pururujam raju ja asuhanti yagne chabagam amritayur avan varunda ayusya vedam anushasti avatira loki. Anyone else like to try?
Hare Krishna. Dhanvantarischa Bhagavan Swayam Eva Kirti Namna Ninam Pururujam Ruja Ashuhanti Yagi Chabhagam Amitayu Avavarundha Ayusha Vedam Anushastyavatiriya Loke. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else like to try?
Dear Krishna, can you go ahead, Prabhu? I'm driving. Thank
Sure,
you.
Mataji. Hare Krishna. धन्वन्तरिश्च भगवान् स्वयमेव कीर्तिर् नाम्ना नृणां पुरुरुजां रुजाशुहन्ति यज्ञे च भागम् अमृतयोरवावरुन्ध आयुष्यवेदम् अनुषष्ट्यवित्रिलोके. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else like to try? Maybe like one more person. Give it a try. It's good practice. Good.
धन्वन्तरिश्च भगवान् स्वयमेव कीर्ति नाम्नां नृणां पुरुरुचां रुज आशुहन्ति यज्ञे च भागम् अमृतायुरवावरुन्ध आयुष्यवेदम् अनुशास्त्यवर्तीय लोके. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Okay, we'll do word for word. Dhanvantari, the incarnation of God named Dhanvantari. Cha, and Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Svayam Eva, personality himself. Kirti, fame personified. Namna, by the name Nrinam Puru Rajam, of the disease living entity. Ruja, diseases. Asu, very soon. Hanti, cures. Yajne, in the sacrifice. Cha, also. Bhagam, share. Amrita, nectar. Ayu, duration of life. Ava, from. Avarunde, obtains. Ayushya, of duration of life. Vedam, knowledge. Anushasti, directs. Avatirya, incarnating. Loki, in the universe. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Lord in his incarnation of Dhanvantari very quickly cures the diseases of the ever-diseased living entities simply by his fame personified, and only because of him do the demigods achieve long lives. Thus, the personality of Godhead becomes ever glorified. He also exacted a share from the sacrifices, and it is he only who inaugurated the medical science or the knowledge of medicine in the universe. Purport. As stated in the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, everything emanates from the ultimate source of the personality of Godhead. It is therefore understood in this verse that medical science or knowledge in medicine was also inaugurated by the personality of Godhead in his incarnation Dhanvantari, and thus the knowledge is recorded in the Vedas. The Vedas are the source of all knowledge, and thus knowledge in medical science is also there for the perfect cure of the diseases of the living entity. The embodied living entity is diseased by the very construction of his body. The body is the symbol of diseases. The disease may differ from one variety to another, but disease must be there just as there is birth and death for everyone. So by the grace of the personality of Godhead, not only are diseases of the body and mind cured, but also the soul is relieved of the constant repetition of birth and death. The name of the Lord is also called Bhavosadi, or the source of curing the disease of material existence. Om Jnana Timaranjasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksur Unmulatam Yena Tashme Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupakada Mayam Dadati Svadvadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Chara Swaminiti Namane Snigta Chaita Srupaneta Vadmanam Trasa Plutam Prabhupada Kataprananam Bhakti Chara Padam. So I'm going to read the translation again. The Lord in his incarnation of Dhanvantari very quickly cures the diseases of the ever-diseased living entities simply by his fame personified, and only because of him do the demigods achieve long lives. Thus, the personality of Godhead becomes ever glorified. He also exacted a share from the sacrifices, and it is he only who inaugurated the medical science or the knowledge of medicine in this universe. So this is, I really was happy when I saw this come up because this is related to actually my personal field. So it's something very interesting for me to talk about. But we know that the Lord comes in very different incarnations, and each of these incarnations has a very specific purpose. And so as Dhanvantari, the Lord has incarnated to really, I mean, he is seen as the father, the founder of Ayurveda. He's the one that inaugurated, as it said in this translation, inaugurated the medical science or knowledge of medicine in the universe. And what other, system of medicine and healing can really claim to have come directly from God? So although we see various versions of Ayurveda in today's society, the truth of Ayurveda, the essence of Ayurveda, the deep science and healing potency of Ayurveda has come from God, from the expansion of God. So we know that there is some potency to this system of healing. And I wanted to talk a little bit today about about the role of Dhanvantari in terms of him coming here. He came here, he gave extended life to the demigods. He healed all those. He provided this system of healing here. He was born to Dirgatama, sorry, and so this is in the sense of how we see the Lord incarnating. There's always parentage there, just like with Krishna. So we know that Vasudeva and Devaki. So, but he is here, the incarnation of Lord Vasudeva, and it's said here in the ninth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, again repeating that he was the inaugurator of medical science. So it is Dhanvantari who can release all from disease. He can extend the life of the extend the life of the demigods, extend the life of those in the in material life. But through these healing energies. And in the 6th canto, there's a prayer, which is, may the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his incarnation as Dhanvantari relieve me from undesirable eatables and protect me from physical illness. And so in this discussion, we know that Ayurveda is one of the Vedas. We know that this was all from Vyasadeva, and that he was the progenitor of all of the Vedas as well. So it comes to reason that this would also be, Ayurveda would also come into this as a system of healing as well. And when we think about Ayurveda as a science, we are often looking at the body with all of the connections, all of the relationships. Ayurveda is also looking at the relationship with the Supreme. It is not an isolated science just to the material body. Ayurveda is also looking at the non-physical. It's looking at the soul. It's looking at the subtle energies, how the subtle energies are flowing through the body, the consciousness of one. Then you have the different constitutions within Ayurveda. We have Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and how these are all playing out. The Vata, air; Pitta, fire; Kapha is the earth. So all of these are also playing out in the body. And all of this is also that you think about the physical world, the manifestation within the material world. All of these are also present. We have fire, we have air, we have earth, we have water, ether. And so these are also present in our body. This is all of the material energies. This is all governed under the Lord, under the supreme powers. So in this understanding of how Dhanvantari came here, he established this system. And why does each incarnation of the Lord incarnate? There's always a specific reason. I mentioned that earlier. You have these different expansions of the Lord for specific purposes. We just celebrated Nrsimha Chaturdasi, and we were celebrating that pastime. Nrsimha Chaturdasi, Nrsimhadev is here incarnated to protect his most beloved devotees, and his most beloved devotee in that pastime was Prahlad, and that was the purpose there. We know, we can see Lord Parashuram. He was here to cleanse the Kshatriya class because it becomes very polluted, very corrupt. So Lord Parashuram came as Kshatriya. Well, he actually came in a Brahmanical family, but acted in a Kshatriya way, and he cleansed the Kshatriya line for the next generations to come. We see Lord Ram giving himself as the example of the perfect king, the perfect leader, doing everything according to Shastra. We see Lord Krishna is here to deliver the devotees, to help establish religion in the time of turning into Kali Yuga. I can go on and on. We have Lord Chaitanya here to reestablish the Yuga Dharma. So now we're talking here about Dhanvantari, who's here to establish a system of healing. And how many thousands and thousands of years ago was this? This is a really long time ago. And so we can understand that each of these incarnations is building something. It's achieving something in that time frame. And even though it's said that he helped extend the life of the demigods, he provided healing to all. He provided the science of healing. His purpose here was to provide a cure. Now, Prabhupada gives he provides a very important word in his purport, the Bhavushadi. And the Bhavushadi it's an important word because it is really the cure for all of material disease. And so I want to get into, so yes, Ayurveda is the system of healing for the material body, but also the spiritual body too, because there is so many aspects of Ayurveda that are bringing us back to yoga practice. And what is yoga? It's connecting us to God. It's not just the exercise form, but Ayurveda is helping to establish balance through all of the different energies and qualities in our material, spiritual, emotional bodies. So here we have, but as Bhava Shodhi is referencing in Dhanvantari, Bhava Shodhi is really, as Prabhupada puts it, the panacea for all material diseases. Panacea, it is the across every area, the panacea for all. It's all encompassing for everything. But when we think about material disease, Prabhupada gives a really, he takes that a little bit deeper. And we say we're here because we have material illness, a material disease. But what Prabhupada is referring to in the material disease is not, I have, XYZ, I have diabetes or heart disease or this. It's the disease of material attachments. And this is the material disease that from 99.9% of us got us back here in the material energies. It's what got us back here in the world and further away from the Lord. So how do we cure these material diseases? What is the ultimate cure for the material disease? It's not take this pill, take that pill, get chemotherapy treatments, do this immunotherapy. It's really surrendering to the Lord. So Prabhupada goes into a lot of, detail and provides a lot of context around the fact that we are not these bodies, right? We are spirit souls. We know that. We know that the repeated cycle of birth and death is a disease in itself. It is because we are continuing to identify with our material bodies. And this is something I was actually this morning, I happened to catch an article. I was reading a little bit of the news earlier this morning, and I happened to catch an article. It was a story. It was a story of a couple, and the woman passed away, and the husband was recounting his, I think he's a journalist, and he was sharing his story about living with his wife who had ALS. And it's a very, very awful disease. And her body was just degenerating on her. And this story is really a very sad story of the suffering. And he would see her, and she was so ill, and she was given all these medications and all these tests and poked and prodded for almost a decade living with this disease. The doctors were constantly trying to slow the progression, trying to help her live a more comfortable life, giving her medications, doing all of these imaging, CAT scans and MRIs and this scope and that scope to see how far the disease has progressed, if it's moved to other areas of the body. So you can see, maybe if we've experienced this ourselves, maybe we've experienced this, a loved one going through this, it's very difficult. It's very painful, both for the person going through it and also for the loved one who's watching someone go through this. And it was the story of the husband who watched his wife go through this very, very painful death. She was slowly dying for, the last 6 years of her life. And that's pretty awful. And the thing that he was recounting in his story was how her mood was very low. She refused to take the medication. He would find napkins with the medications just bundled up and stuffed in the sofa. And some days she would just go out and go drinking and come home and be very drunk. And, she was very disturbed in her mind, right? Because ALS is a very disturbing disease. And so I'm going to take that and I'm going to put that here. So this is an example of a person. It's not a judgment, but it's an example of a person who was very much taken down taken down by their disease. Now, there's an example of another person who also given a terminal diagnosis, cancer, and they work through it. They try to see the best in it. They plan out their life. They communicate with their loved ones. And I'll take that even further. Let's take it to Prahlad or to King Parikshit. He was given a terminal diagnosis. He had 7 days left to live. 7 days, that was it. He was cursed. He was bitten by the snake bird and cursed to die in 7 days. What did he do? Did he lament? Did he beg for mercy and beg for Krishna to reverse it? Because he could have. He could have, because he had, he had that deep relationship with Krishna, but he didn't. He accepted it. He accepted it as not only his fate, he accepted it as an opportunity and even almost a boon. Because in his last days of his life, King Parikshit was not lamenting. He was not going out and trying to live life to the fullest and squeeze everything in that he never got to do into those last few days. I gave a class a couple of weeks ago and we were talking a lot about this. It's sometimes people are given these terminal diagnoses and they may go into depression and say, oh, well, this is horrible. I can't deal with this anymore. I'm done. Some go into this complete and utter, I'm going to live my life. I'm going to squeeze every drop out of this material world. I'm going to get every last bit of material satisfaction I can from this. And then others say, I'm going to do good. I'm going to do the last bits of good in this world. I'm going to help people. I'm going to spend time with my family. I'm going to do those things. And if we take the transcendental approach, so this is kind of mode of ignorance, mode of passion, mode of goodness, but let's transcend that. And we take the transcendental approach to such a diagnosis. And we say, I'm going to bring myself closer to the Lord. I'm going to listen. I'm going to chant. I'm going to study. I'm going to, in my last days, help others find their way to a relationship with the Lord. And if they don't have the energy for that, they're going to read, they're going to listen, they're going to be surrounded by those who can recite for them. And this is why it's so important when we see devotees in their final days. If you've ever had the opportunity to experience that, what are devotees doing in the final days of someone's life? What are they doing? They're going to be sad. Sure, we're all sad, but they are there chanting. They're reading Srimad Bhagavatam. They're reading Srimad Bhagavad Gita. They're helping that person pass in a way that will take them back to God. They're praying for their safe journey back to Krishna. So in our final days, we can hope and pray that we have devotees close to us that can help deliver us, help when even in our weakest moments, maybe when we're not able to chant anymore, where we're not fully conscious, that we have some devotees there that can help deliver us to that final destination. So now we've got the final destination. We have that terminal disease, but let's rewind a minute and let's go back into, I'm here, I'm enjoying life. Oh, I get sick, oh, we have so many options here, so many options in our life for treating material ailments. And we have Western medicine, we have Ayurveda, we have herbalism. I'm a functional medicine doctor, so I work in that functional medicine space. So I work with herbal medicine and I work with, nutrition and lifestyle. So I can very much relate to this topic so deeply because I see patients. I've seen them for 15 years, a long time. I've been working with patients for all different stages of disease. And one of the things that is so vital and what Prabhupada points out in here, that bhavashadi is not that we're the curing of the material ills, but also helping people get to a deeper relationship, to cure the soul, the cure of the soul. What's the cure for the soul? The cure for the soul is bhakti yoga, because bhakti yoga is going to help us link ourselves to Krishna. Bhakti yoga is the process by which we can establish a relationship with God, an everlasting relationship with God, no matter what. So while we can, we all have experienced illness, every single one of us, there is not a single person, I'm sure of it, who hasn't experienced some sort of pang in the body. No one, even a baby, even when a baby's first born, their first thing is discomfort, because they are in this womb where all is protected, it's warm, all of their nourishment is provided, and suddenly they are birthed out this, the birthing channel, and suddenly they're appearing in this world, and there's bright lights, and there's hands there, and it's cold, and it's very uncomfortable. So from the moment we are born, we are experiencing physical discomfort. That is a given. As a child, we're running, we're having fun, we're playing. Oops, I tripped and fell and I scraped my knee. Or if you were like me, I tripped and fell and broke my wrist. I was a bit clumsy as a kid. I'm still clumsy as an adult. But we've experienced difficulties of the material body for our entire lives, and some more than others. So we have the material remedies in a sense of, I broke my wrist when I was a kid. I went to the emergency room, they put a cast on me. 6 weeks later, it was like it never happened. I'm back out running around until I scraped my knee or did something else dumb. I had, German measles when I was little, or I had this, or I had that. There was always an opportunity for me to go to the doctor. Thankfully, in this Western world, we have the opportunity to go to a doctor. The doctor gives you a remedy in the form of a pill or just rest for 3 days, whatever that is, antibiotics. And you go home and you do that and you feel better. But the deeper thing is that as we're going through this repetition of bodily discomforts, whether it's an injury or an illness or some terminal diagnosis, as we're going through that process, are we just looking at the physical aspect of it? When we think about that process, we need to really think deeper. Maharaj Parikshit was looking deeper. He was experiencing the physical discomfort of knowing that he'd gotten bitten. He knew that he was doomed to die in 7 days, but he also had the wisdom. He had the wisdom to connect more deeply to what was truly meaningful, what was going to cure his soul, And the years ago, when I first started coming to the temple, this is a long time ago, Ravindra Prabhu did a whole lecture series on the cure of souls. If you ever get a chance to look it up on, I think it's an ISKCON Desire Tree, there's old recordings of it. And it's really along these lines of what is the cure for the soul? We know we have, Dhanvantari has brought us these different cures, seemingly cures for the body, but they're not truly cures. But seemingly there's these different cures, we'll call them, for physical ailments. But what's the cure for the soul? And in our process of living out our day-to-day, our daily lives, the cure for the soul that is really that is really to be the focus is devotional service. So and Prabhupada writes here in a lecture that he gave on this topic, he wrote and I'm going to read a little snippet of this lecture because I think it brings up some really good points for today. Prabhupada says it better than I can. What is the value of your independence? Can you avoid death? Suppose you're independent. What is the meaning of this independence? When death will come, will catch you by your neck and throw you away. Your independence, nonsense independence. This is the transcript. What is the value of this independence? Be independent from the clutches of Maya. No more death. That is independence. That is independence. No more death. Oh, that is you are struggling to get out of the clutches of Maya or the material nature, external energy of God. You're trying to make nice medicine to get out of the attack of the disease. But can you manufacture a better medicine? You cannot get out of disease. This is not possible. This is the struggle. We have manufactured such a nice medicine that cancer or any other disease will not attack us. That is very nice. But find out some medicine that death will not attack you. Oh, that is not possible. What is the meaning of advancement? And he goes on to say, the Krishna conscious movement is that medicine by which you can conquer death. Therefore, it is the best medicine. Bhavashadi. It is said in Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhavashadi, Nivriti Tasher Upagayamanat. You can stand on the wall, not in the middle. So this word Bhavashati is the panacea for all material diseases. And so again, Prabhupada is saying here, I was reading when I was preparing for this class, a conversation that he had with someone in the health field. And the person in the health field kept saying, I think you're misunderstanding me. I think you're misunderstanding me. Prabhupada kept saying there is no cure. There's no way to remedy disease. There's no way to this medicine. It's he was saying it was borderline useless, right? But he was, and the person he was talking to was saying, I think you're misunderstanding. Prabhupada was like, no, I'm not misunderstanding you. Because if you can prevent someone from dying, like forever, but you can't prevent someone from suffering, from experiencing the suffering of this material world, because it's part of what we signed up for. When we decided we wanted a little bit of freedom from the Lord, what we signed up for was to be here and act independent of the Lord. But Prabhupada's saying here, what is the value of this independence? But we wanted it so badly. We wanted this independence so badly that Krishna said, okay, fine, here you go. Here's your material world. You play in there. You play nicely. And when you finally have been worn out, you're tired, you've been beaten up, and you decide that you're ready to come back, I'm here. But yet he makes it very difficult because the material energies are so alluring. But ultimately, it just catches us, like Prabhupada said, it catches us by the neck and throws us out, right? Because we can't escape it. So we've hankered for this independence from Krishna. We may have turned our backs on Krishna. Maybe at some point in our lives, we really just weren't even thinking at all about spiritual life. I came to spiritual life sometime in my 20s, my late 20s. And I know that in my teens and my 20s, I wasn't thinking about my soul so much. I wasn't thinking about death or how to connect with God. I wanted to have fun. I wanted to be with my friends. I wanted to do things that everyone else was doing and just going out and having a good time. But and some people live their whole lives like that. So where is the illness? Where's the material disease? The material disease lies in our inability to see our true position. So the disease to be cured is the cure for our misidentification, the misidentification with our body. So how do we remedy this? Again, we only can remedy it by coming to bhakti, coming to the Lord. So here in this is in a purport in Bhagavatam in the first canto. It says, Srimad Bhagavatam is a summum bonum remedy for suffering humanity in the clutches of Maya. Srila Vyasadeva, therefore, first of all, diagnosed the actual disease of the conditioned souls, i.e., they're being illusioned by the external energy. So here, this is Srila Vyasadeva is seeing that he diagnosed everything, and he saw the need for the Srimad Bhagavatam as the remedy for suffering humanity. So the diagnosis is we have the disease of the conditioned soul. And while our body may be attacked, inconvenienced by certain material discomforts, diseases, illnesses, injuries, that's not the actual problem. We may think it is in the moment. And it's really hard to not feel overwhelmed by the bodily disease or by the bodily discomfort. It's very difficult for anyone who's experienced deep sickness, or even if you've had COVID. What happens when you're in that state? You're just like, oh, I feel terrible, and you're just completely consumed because the material body is just so heavy and pulls you down. But that's not the disease. That's not the actual true problem. It is a symptom. It is a symptom of material energies, and it can strike anybody at any time. And this is the thing that it's really, we need to be aware that these things can strike at any time because of our proximity to Maya. Our close proximity to the material world puts us in this precarious situation. And as long as we are in these material bodies and that with that close proximity, it's what we have to deal with. So let's not be so overly consumed by that mentally. Sometimes we might become so consumed by a fear of getting cancer or a fear of illness or a fear of this or a fear of that. And it can strike us to say, I don't want discomfort. I don't want to be, I don't want my body to break down on me. And we can do things, sure, like in my field in functional medicine, right? I help people lessen the impact. I help them have a better lifestyle, better nutrition. When they do have disease and illness, I work with them to lessen the impact of those so that we can live a more full life. But what do we do with that time that we've been given or that extra space we've been given? This is the key. So if we go to the doctor, we receive some cure, or we receive some medicine, or maybe some herbs, or some nutritional changes or lifestyle changes that give us some relief from what we're feeling. What do we do with that relief? And this is really the question we want to ask ourselves. That when we feel relief from discomfort, from bodily discomfort, when we feel relief from disease, when we feel relief from suffering, what is our go-to with that? With that relief, are we just back at it? Like, yeah, great, I have all this energy. Are we taking that feeling of relief and that extra energy, and are we using it to deepen our relationship with the Lord? Are we using it to deepen our devotional service? To cultivate ourselves more? Because there's always more we can be doing. Always. This is not spiritual life doesn't have an end point, especially when we're still in a material body. There is no end point. There is no like final destination. I've reached it. I can sit back and just relax. Like when you're on a long road trip and you've got you're gonna get there. You're gonna get there, and you finally get there, and you're like, I'm done. I can just relax for a little bit. But that's not how spiritual life works. Because spiritual life is a constant game of adjustments. We're constantly needing to adjust because we are still involved in material energies. We still have the modes of material nature constantly tugging on us. And some days we might be tired. We didn't get such a good night's sleep. Maybe the adhyātmika, adhibodhika, adhidaivika interfered with us somehow. That is throwing us off, making us a little less tuned to our divine relationship, clouding our judgment, clouding us over so that we can't really quite access that. So it is a constant game of adjustments, and we want to build and build and build. So we can do all of these things, and there's something in my field, and I see this every once in a while, and I have a little bit of this in me too, just because of my field that I'm in. But there's something, if you've heard of biohacking, and biohacking is trying to maximize the body's performance to reduce disease and to improve health and longevity. So it has this term biohacking. So we can biohack and make and with our bodies and just try and get everything just tweaked perfectly and get the numbers right and take this exact nutrient and exactly this food on this day and then fast for this many hours and do this and this and this and just move the dials a little bit like this to try and get that perfect. But I'll tell you what, I've worked with some biohackers in my clinic, and it's impossible. It's impossible. You cannot find perfection. Again, why? Because we are subject to the material energies, and they're constantly doing this, knocking us around. Adhyātmika, adhibodhika, adhidaivika, they're there. We can't get it. We can't escape them. So rather, we might find ourselves doing some deep bhakti instead, and really putting our energies into how we can cultivate our Krishna consciousness to help cure the material disease, not the bodily disease, the material disease. And that only comes from repetition. That comes from association. That comes from sadhana, from listening, from hearing, chanting, worshiping, prayer, all of these things that can really help cure the material disease. So with that, I would like to open it up for discussion, questions, corrections, as I make lots of mistakes, and yeah, just invite discussion.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for a nice lecture. And yeah, by the Lord's arrangement, you had the one that talked about Dhanvantari, and then it's in the medical field, and you were in the medical field yourself. So that it really quite an opportunity for all of us to hear more about the physical body, and of course, connecting its sensual devotee to Krishna consciousness and bhakti. Dear devotees, please unmute yourself. If you have questions to ask, realizations that you'd like to share, thoughts from things that you know to connect to this one, so that we can have a wonderful discussion. Dear Krishna Prabhu, please go ahead. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much. Wonderful points and good reminders. So I was just thinking when you were speaking about Bhagavan Dhanvantari, how merciful Krishna is that he even comes in the form of a doctor so that we can keep our bodies healthy and mind healthy. But the purpose should be known to us, why he wants us to do these or keep body and mind healthy. So I was just reading on my desktop calendar this morning, which matches with what you were speaking this morning, that actual problem is not the material health, it is our distresses of the life. So Srila Prabhupada says in this May 15th calendar, or he has been quoted, all the cowherd men, including Nanda Maharaj, used to talk of the wonderful activities of Lord Krishna and Balram, and they were always so much absorbed in those talks that they forgot the threefold miseries of this material existence. This is the effect of Krishna consciousness. So the real healing, like you were mentioning, the Krishna consciousness. Thank you so much, Mataji. My question probably would be as a follow-up is, how can we have this kind of association where we can keep reminding each other of only Krishna consciousness? Even in the association of devotees we were discussing yesterday also, we get carried away a lot. and start discussing a lot of things which are and everything but not Krishna. So how can we? Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really good question. I think the first thing is to remember that we are still here in these material bodies. And I think I encourage devotees to also talk about their lives, because we have to connect with one another, but we have to relate it back to Krishna. I'm not a fan of taking the spiritual bypass, right? And just ignoring the things that are going on in our lives, but we have to remember to relate it back to Krishna and and remind ourselves that everything we're doing, if we put it in under the lens, or put it through the lens of doing it to serve the Lord, that we are just the doers. We are not the creators. We are not the Ishwara. We are doing, and hopefully we're doing things according to our propensities, according to what is our dharma. But we have, when we're in the association of other devotees, it's natural, right? It's natural that we talk about our lives and things going on, but we want to try and steer away from things that can really pull us down. So if we start to spiral into, talking about other devotees in a negative way, or we start to spiral into like really lamenting, and it pulls us down. So we have to be there to support each other in a way that's nourishing. And if someone has a really serious disease, we can remind them to read, but they have true suffering too, that we need to really honor and be there for. So we don't want to bypass someone's suffering, but we want to remind them that they're loved, they're supported, that we can help care for them. But we also want to remind them that they can turn also to Krishna and turn themselves more deeply into that relationship with the Lord. Because like I said, the worst thing we can do for someone when they're ill or suffering is to be like, well, just read more, chant more. That's a good thing in the long term, but in the short term, they're going to be like, but I'm really uncomfortable right now, and that's not compassionate or helpful. So it's important that we show compassion for one another, right? And really see truly where someone is. I see a lot of devotees in my clinic, and one of the things that I do, because I have other people that work for me that see other patients, but I always say if the devotees come in, I'll take them. And it's because there's a special, in my opinion, I think when devotees have health issues, especially, and they have these things, I want to chant, I want to pray, I want to do all these things, the lifestyle, it's important to be able to address that both from a health standpoint, but then I can encourage them to say, okay, you have these things going on. Let's also, how are you also attending class, or are you chanting, or how are those things going in your life? And so we can make it a more of a holistic approach, because we can't just bypass the physical suffering. We have to be compassionate and acknowledge it. But when we're with one another, we also need to support and uplift. And there's no formula for it, unfortunately. It's nothing formulaic. It's just one of the true Vaishnava qualities is compassion. And having compassion for where someone is at is really what it comes down to. And if we find ourselves so to answer your question, Prabhu, if you find you're in a conversation that is devolving into a topic that feels not nourishing for you, and it feels like it's pulling you down and making you just not feeling very connected, you can excuse yourself. Or you can try and change the topic to something that's more uplifting. And so it is a balancing act. And like I said, I ideally we want to be like the sages of Naimisharanya, right? Like that's the pinnacle, to be the sages of Naimisharanya and hearing in the forest for, years, but for weeks on end, but really to be able to be at that level, to just only hear and have nothing material, no prajalpa. That's the the pinnacle. But we have to be realistic too. So I know it's probably not the most elevated answer, but I think it's probably the most it's a way to address it that's gonna navigate our day-to-day life a little bit more compassionately. So
Very nice. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone
Hare
else?
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Vrindavaneswari, please accept my humble obeisance. So, Prabhupada, loved your class. You know, as you were speaking about a topic that many people shy away from, I have to, say, because people are still thinking, well, I have many more years to live. So why speak about death? At the same time, we are very much aware that every step there is danger. Padam padam yad vipadam, but we don't want to accept it. And if I may add to Dear Krishna's question, how can we Dear Krishna, I think you said, how can we develop, something about association, right, Dear Krishna?
Yeah.
Yeah, how
Yeah.
can we encourage each other to understand when we meet, especially just once a week, we can just focus on the topic, of Krishna.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was coming to my mind, Vrindavaneswari, is a lecture that my spiritual master gave many years ago. Who you are is what you attract.
Yeah.
And that really dawned on me because even when I was listening to the lecture at that time, I think this was like late 90s, I believe, and later on, he really stressed the point, if we want to be Krishna conscious, we will attract devotees with that same mood to have Krishna conscious katha with us.
Yeah.
It's all within us, and I think sometimes we, it's human nature. We point the three fingers at someone else, but one finger, some of the three are pointing back at us. I think we have, I don't want to make it sound like we're the controllers, but we do have some free will that the Lord has given us.
Yeah.
Yes, to make the right choices. So if we want to have Krishna Katha, even when we meet once a week, we should have that desire, that longing that, I want to sit with somebody that I can sit and talk about this. And Krishna will just attract you to the right person,
He'll
during
facilitate.
prasadam time. Yes, absolutely, and because the Lord is in our hearts. The Paramatma is in our hearts. So if we have the sincere desire, I really want to sit and have Krishna Katha with a devotee, and the Lord will facilitate. Okay, there you go. There's one right there. Opportunity for you. But again, it's who we are is what we attract, But if we are just coming just to do, time pass and just want to hang out and eat, and anybody come with just gossip, then that's who you are. That's who you're attracting. So it all starts with us, like what it is what I call a self reflection, evaluation on ourselves. What are we longing for? What are we looking for? What is our sincere desire? What do we really want when we come to the temple to sit with the devotees? What? And I think when we go really, really deep and we become honest with what we want, what kind of association, so on and so forth, the Lord will easily facilitate. But that's what came to my mind, Vrindavaneswari, when I was listening to Dear Krishna's question. Yeah, but I want to say, Vrindavaneswari, that your lecture is very, very powerful. And especially when you use the example of Parikshit Maharaj, right? He had 7 days, and we don't even know we have 7 minutes, And I was just thinking how flinching, chanchal, our time is.
Yeah.
And yet we take it for granted. And I'm sure you being in the health field, you see it even more than we do in terms of the emergency consciousness. I'm sure because we're not in the medical field, But I was just thinking how powerful it is for us to really live, like again, like I was told by my spiritual master, if we're 50 years old, we are actually 50 years dead.
Right.
Those 50 years are gone. Okay, now what do I do with the next if we have 50 years, you know,
Mhm.
because we have, 50-year-old parties and this and that, but it's not 50 years. At 50 years is dead. What did I do?
Yeah.
How can we take it? And I think that was the pastime that you were sharing about Parikshit Maharaj, he had 7 days and man, he made the absolute right choice.
Yeah,
He was an
absolutely.
emperor.
Absolutely. It was, and honestly, Prabhu, to get back to what you're saying with Dear Krishna's question, you're absolutely right. I mean, if we have a deep desire for kata, we will find it,
Yes.
And if we have a deep desire for other things, we will find it. So the desire points us to the, our desires manifest results, and sometimes we don't always know what we're desiring. So, and that's what I was saying to Dear Krishna Prabhu too, is that sometimes if we're seeing a conversation devolving, and it's not feeling nurturing or uplifting to our Krishna consciousness anymore, we can excuse ourselves. We can change the topic. If they don't budge, we can excuse ourselves, and that's an opportunity to just kind of jump ship and move on. And so if we're feeling like we really at that point are not getting what we need, we have to be able to also take our own Krishna consciousness and guard it very carefully, because no one else will. And so we have to guard it and move on. And my point with that was only to just say, like, if someone's suffering, we want to provide that clarity for them. We don't want to just nudge them up and say you can only be talking about Krishna. We want to hear their suffering. But if someone's deeply wanting that Krishna kata, then we each have our own individual free will to walk away and say, I'm going to go listen to a Prabhupada lecture, because I know I can always get it there.
Absolutely. As you're speaking, I'm reminded by my my dad's favorite phrase: only you can earn your own salvation. No one can earn your salvation. So it's on us. Sometimes I think when we sit, and that's a perfect thing like that you told there, Krishna. Either we change the topic, and if we can, excuse yourself, because at the end of the day, it's on us to protect our Bhakti Lata Beach. Ain't no one gonna do it for us. We can be reminded, we can be corrected and guided and chastised by the spiritual master and so on and so forth, but still, we got to make that action move. It's on us to get up and move, not think that it's going to manifest on itself by magic, by the fairy godmother wand, it's just going to happen. But yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, but wonderful class, Vrindavaneswari. I really appreciated the point of how, looking at death as an opportunity, for us to go deeper in our spiritual life, even if we are not dying, who knows? I don't know. But at least the time that we have to really take every day seriously, and to really not just the physical, but like you said, when you take devotees as your patients, you go deeper.
Yeah.
You go deeper. And I think that's the beauty, of having devotees and the health field, because they know a much better, way of helping us than the karmi doctors do, But yeah, thank you. Wonderful class, Renarji. Thank you so much. Haribol.
Thank you all for listening today. Thank you. Anything else? It's the top of the hour, so we probably need to get going.
Yeah.
So
yeah, thank you very much, devotees, for coming on, and have a wonderful, it's Friday, so have a wonderful Krishna conscious weekend. Vanchaka Patrubhishta Kripa Sindhu
Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Hare Krishna.
Ki Jai. Thank you
Have
again.
a wonderful weekend. Thank you, everyone. Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Jai. Hare Krishna.